There you go, guys. Another progress update. Right, these back guards I'm pretty happy with. I got a couple little bits of sand on this back guard, and basically I'm pretty happy. I have a real good check around to make sure I haven't missed any sort of little bits and pieces, but I'm pretty much ready. Well, I'm pretty much happy for that to get probably three real good coats of high build primer, and then a guide coat, and then start blocking back and see where we sit. Basically, it shouldn't be far away, but that'll tell the big tail. Get a nice good build of primer on, and then your guide coat and block it back and see if there's anything that where it's maybe a little bit wavy or something like that, and hopefully I can get most of it out, and we'll go from there. The back guard's pretty much the same. I've just sanded the last little bits and pieces off that I think I needed to. So I'm pretty much, again, apart from probably just a couple little tidy up, just some corners, just double check everything. That I think that's pretty much ready for filler as well. Not filler. Three good coats of like the high build primer. I'll just give the tops of the guards of sand. Like they're pretty reasonable for. I don't think there's too many dents or anything in them. There was one little one on the top of that guard. I put a little bit of filler in and sanded that out. But I did a few. I had a good feel around the other day, and I any wee high spots and bits and pieces, because there was quite a few dents from up underneath on this boot lid, and so I went around with a hammer and I knocked them down. Basically, I went over with the sanding block for a start off, and anywhere that come up with where the steel come back through real quick, I went around with a hammer and just gave it a tap, knocked it down, and then I put a bit of filler in, and I started blocking that all back, and it was quite damaged here from being pushed down over the years, slammed shut and all that sort of stuff. So I put quite a bit of filler in there too, and I blocked it back earlier on, and it wasn't too bad, but you could see where it was still quite wavy because there was big patches of silver coming back through before I'd even got and there was bits of mist filler still. So I've given it just a real light coat. As you can see, like there's still spots where I haven't actually coated with filler. So I've tried to get it as thin as possible, but get a bit of filler on it. And once that's gone off, I'll sand the whole boot lid with my body file sanding block with the 60 grit on it, and hopefully that'll give me a real good indication, because it has been quite sort of damaged, like dents and stuff being set on it, and and obviously the other things being set inside the boot and it's been closed on. So I managed to knock most of the highs down. It's just getting that waviness out of it. So I'll block that back later on, and sort of see how we sit and see where the metal's coming through, and see if there's any other spots that I've missed. I'm hoping that basically, well, I'd say 60 or 70% of that should be gone by the time I've finished sanding. I'm hoping, and it'll be just the lower spots. It'll be still sitting there, because I know that it was generally a pretty good shape. It's just it's been knocked around a bit, not savagely, but just humps and hollows and little dings in here and there. So hopefully I can block most of them out with that, and then again, just if there's any spots that really need a little bit more filler, I'll do that, and then block it back again, and hopefully that won't be far away from primer as well. And then I'll do a quick skim coat over the rest of it too, just to straighten it out, but that's as much as I got mixed up to cover it. So it covered the bulk of it anyway, and that was sort of the worst side for damage. And here it was a bit humpy and hollowy too. So, but we'll skim coat the rest of it as well, and eventually, and just get it hopefully nice and straight. So that's the sort of where I'm at. Sort of hard because I'm sort of reasonably busy with work, but today's really peeing down, and when I'm driving a spreader truck, the last thing I want to be doing is making a lot of mud or sliding off hills. So I've sort of had a semi-early day. Probably get an hour and a half off, I suppose. So I'll carry on from here and let this dry off, and hopefully it won't be far away. Cheers. There you go, guys. Right, just another update on this boot lid. I think I showed you in the last video that I had quite a lot of filler on here. I'd spared quite a not super thick, but just a good coat right across the top of it. Now I've had the sanding block out. I had a couple, 3 actually. I started off with some 60 grit on there, and been using this with some 80 on here, and also my sorry about spinning around there, and my air sander with 80 grit sanding pad on there too. Like I used that to get it down to a reasonable level, and then I've used this since to cut it down reasonably quick. So I'm not spending all day sanding, and then I'll keep reverting between those two and this occasionally just to keep bringing it down. As you can see, I've got a lot of steel showing through here now, so I'm about as down as low as it's probably going to sort of get without pulling a little bit more filler in some of these places where it's just not enough in here yet. Generally it's pretty good. I put a light guide coat of just a wee bit of edge primer, because it's only anything that I have was sort of dark colour at the moment, just to give me a guide. And it's just little places like this where it's still obviously just a little bit low, and obviously pieces in here where I haven't quite got enough filler in. But generally, it's just little spots. A lot of this sort of thing, I'm hoping will come out with, with 2, 3, 4 coats of high build, and most of that should come out. But like a lot of these, some of these other funnier ones, mightn't quite, and just the places where I've missed with little patches. Obviously need a bit more filler in here, but it's getting there. The shape's coming in, because that was quite heavily damaged from slamming it closed over the years. And there's a few wee spots in here, and again there's some lower spots in here where there's not quite enough filler. A little bit on the edge here. I just haven't quite enough filler. But generally it's coming along quite good. Need a little bit more here. I haven't put a lot in here yet, mainly because I by the time I've spread it across the boot lid, and I sort of started on this side because it was the worst damaged, but I'll get a little bit more on through here to try and flatten that out too, and obviously put a bit more in here. But that's not looking too bad. Like generally, it just needs a few little bits to fill these low spots out now, and I don't think it'll be far away. And then as I said, 3 or 4 good coats of high build, or 5 or 6, if it needs it. Once you get down to that fine nitty gritty, just to get rid of those little last highs and lows. So that's what I did. Once I get yours getting pretty close, I put that guide coat on and just keep blocking back until I've almost ended up with just little touches here and there, and because there's so much steel thrown through, obviously I need a little bit more filler in spots, and hopefully the rest of it will come out with, as I said, with some high build primer and as many coats as it needs, hopefully. So we're not far away from on the boot lid. I haven't sort of touched down the bottom yet, but I'll do that too. Once I get this sort of sorted, I'll smear a little bit along there too, and just get that sort of finalised as well. And then I'll start on the underneath of it. Well, yeah, I have a bit of a sand round underneath, and just tidy up a few bits and pieces where I repaired. I'm not going to get real fussy, but I'll give it a decent sand back and tidy up those pieces where I repaired it. So that's about where I'm at with this. So we'll leave it at that for now, and we'll get back to you. Cheers. There you go, guys. Just another quick short update just after the last one. I just mixed up a bit more filler. As you can see, I've done most of this now. Just giving it a light skim across here. Reasonable skim across here. It was just starting to go off a little bit A bit more in here, and as you can see, I'll put quite a good smear back through here again, because that's where it was heavily damaged, just to help get that last bit of the shape right. I was just trying to flatten it off a bit more, but it was just starting to go off too much. So, and I've just done all the little bits and pieces where I could sort of see where there was, where it just wasn't quite high enough. And I've just given it a light smear in some of these spots where it was, just a little bit showing. So hopefully, by the time I give this a real good block back again, we should be pretty close. And then the rest, I think, we'll get out with high build primer. This may need another skim yet, just to even things out. But I've got a reasonable amount on there now. I can sand off and hopefully get that pretty flat again. The more you can get out here, the less work you have to do when you get to the high build, primer. So yeah, it probably, if you think you've got enough filler on, and you've given it a reasonable block back, and you got a bit more to do, put a guide coat on it, so at least you can see where, you can still feel with your fingers, but sometimes you just don't see the bigger picture. That guide coat gives you, as it does, as it says, it gives you a good guide. You can see the areas that aren't, coming, where it's not sanding out quite so quick. So you can sort of concentrate on it a bit more. Think, it might be, it's pretty flat in there. But when you flick a bit of a guide coat and give it a, 2 or 3 rubs over the block, you can see there's a lot of areas, where it's still quite low, and you need to do more work on there before you get to that prime stage. Use a guide coat, as many times as you have to, really. Righty, we'll get back to it. Cheers.